Hello and welcome to Bristol Sport TV's new series, Meet the Boss. Well, whilst we're all continuing to live life in lockdown, we thought it would be a good opportunity to take a closer look at some of our key partners and sponsors, find out how they're adjusting to life throughout the current crisis, what makes their business tick, but also how they got involved with the sporting group as a whole. And I'm pleased to say that joining us today is the CEO of Hargreaves Lansdown, Chris Hill. Chris, welcome to you. I hope you, the family and all your staff are keeping well throughout these difficult times.
Good morning, Lisa. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Yes, we're all doing well. Thank you very much. But clearly in conditions that we would never have thought about if you'd asked us about it even 3-4 months ago, as recently as that, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about anything that you could predict. I mean, businesses that thrive and prosper are ones that adapt very quickly to challenging times. And just talk us through how Hargreaves Lansdown has adjusted to this remote working, because it was a mammoth task, wasn't it?
Well, it's significant. I mean, we've now got about 1,200 people, all of whom are working from home, working remotely. But we've also got just slightly under 300 people spread through the 3 buildings that we've got in Bristol. And, really that shift to that way of working had to happen just so very, very quickly. And just seeing, I think it's quite incredible, actually, how people stepped up to the challenge. And we've managed to, because we've managed to get to this way of working at a time of the year which is always our busiest period, and that's been a real challenge for us. But I'm pleased to say, it's all working.
You talk about making that adjustment. I'm aware that Hargreaves Lansdown was similar to us at the stadium. Obviously, you guys on a much larger scale in terms of just the sheer volume of getting laptops to all of your staff, making sure that everyone was able to connect. And that was being done in the weeks counting down to the actual official lockdown, wasn't
it? Yes, it was. I mean, we started planning for this actually quite early when the news flow started. So all the hygiene measures we'd started to think about. And actually there was a particular day when we trialed it, just getting 2 whole departments to work from home. And that was on a Friday. The thing was, when they came back, or they wanted to come back the next week, we turned around and said, don't come into the office. Because what we then needed to do was to make use of that space to make sure we got the right sort of social distancing in place for the people that we had to have into the office, to make sure that we can manage people's money, take the payment, take the receipts, manage the payments, deal with the post. You've got to have people there, but you've got to have them dispersed in the right way. And then if you are going to have large numbers of people working at home, all the technology that goes with that, making sure that the gateway's got the capacity, and the hard yards then of making sure that everybody's got laptops. I don't know if we shared the photograph with you, but we had these spare laptops that were then piled up at work, and gradually we were getting them out to people. But then you've got to make sure that people are set up effectively to be able to work from home. And I think that's been one of the big challenges for us, which is how do you maintain that level of service that we really pride ourselves on, especially through a period that's made even more busy because of all the impact of the COVID virus. And then you've got people logging in and working from home and managing all of that. It's quite a significant task.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the logistics and just from a practical element point of view of getting people upskilled and running and being able to do the business, if you like. But then, of course, there's a whole separate challenge, isn't there, in terms of the actual challenges to the people themselves and actually the human element of what people are going through.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I actually spend a considerable amount of my time trying to manage that. When we look at this, so we've got in the office we've got some people in the office who, if we ever had to close it, you'd have to drag them out kicking and screaming because they want to be there, they want the routine, they like the camaraderie that's always comes through in times like this. If we're honest, we've also got some people who are slightly uncertain about being in the office. We haven't forced anybody to be in there, but some people are a little bit apprehensive. Then you have the people working at home, and a whole different set of challenges, especially those who are looking after little ones. Because I'm fortunate; I've got 3 teenagers, and apart from them grabbing the broadband capacity when I really want it, actually that works okay. But the people I then talk to via Zoom calls or whatever, who are looking after little kids, that's one set of challenge. Then you've got those people who are sharing in flats, and don't have the outside space and are confined, can only get out once a day to go and do their shopping, whatever. Trying to manage and help them with their mental well-being. I think that's a big issue, and I think that's an issue that's probably growing in terms of its level of concern for everybody, quite frankly. But it's something that we are particularly wary of, because the pressures in terms of what we need to do, and the clients that we need to look after, and the transactions we need to process, they haven't gone away. So you've got to help people to manage in these new circumstances.
This crisis has thrown up actually the companies that actually genuinely are putting mental health first and foremost within their businesses, making sure that their employees are happy, means that they will run perhaps a more successful business.
I completely agree. And we've got a pretty young team. Our average age is about 32. So we've got large teams of young people, and I think one thing that strikes me about working with them is how much they care in a very broad way around the company that they work for, what the company stands for, what it is that the company is trying to do, and therefore the level of engagement that you have to have with them is much more significant and really, really important, because the culture that we have, and how we focus on our clients and how we work together as a team is just so important. One of the things of what we've had to do going through the crisis, with the sort of reacting to fairly rapid changes in events, is you've just got to have teams that collaborate and work really, really well together. And I think we've certainly managed it through this. But actually having we all know having a team that collaborates, works well together and is engaged, that's what a successful team is. And if you haven't got a successful team, you won't have a successful business.
Well, you talk about the demographic there of your workforce, that's millennials moving into Gen Z. And a key thing for them is caring about what the company actually does, that it has a sense of purpose, and particularly crucially, that they enjoy coming to work for that company. I guess that's a key thing to how you retain good staff.
I think that's right. I mean, we've got a very clear purpose that we talk about at Hargreaves Lansdown, and our purpose is to help our clients to have the confidence and enable them to save and to invest. And I think when you have a very clear purpose like that, people relate to it very, very quickly. They also really appreciate the role, therefore, that the company that they work for plays in the broader economy, broader lives. So I think that's particularly important. And I think the other thing, really, and this comes with, I think, thinking much more about, as you say, the millennials and Generation Z, and is the expectation they have of, so if I'm working for a company, what does that company stand for? And to that end, I think that companies really have to play a strong role in the community in which they live and work. We're a big employer in Bristol, and I think it's important that we engage in the community, and we help in the community with whatever skills and abilities we're able to. And again, I think that all brings it back. It focuses people on sort of the ethos of the company, what the company is there to do, to help people.
Well, obviously Hargreaves Lansdown very much rooted in the community, and I know that you've explored over the years various different ways of community projects and involvements, and that's actually how you came to be involved with our sporting group in the first place.
Well, that's right. I send something out to colleagues sort of once a month, and it's my sort of take on what's going on in the business and what's interesting, what's important. That's changed as of now. I tend to do something every week now, and it's a video that goes around. But I remember, you always remember the feedback that you get, and I wrote something about my belief that actually business has a role to play in the community, and the level of response that I got to that, and people volunteering, saying actually when you thought that through, actually we'd really like to get involved. That came together with thinking about this relatively young team that we've got in the office, and actually how you bring them all together and engage. And we'd started to try to do a few things ourselves in the community. We did a sponsored walk, probably 2 or 3 summers ago, and it was good, but it didn't quite work the way that we wanted to. And then we were introduced to Ben and Bristol Sport Foundation, and we've sort of grown it from there, because actually I think it works really well for us. We've got an enthusiastic team who want to get involved and want to help. We don't necessarily have the experience of how you set up those events or structures or programs, and that's what Bristol Sport Foundation have actually given us. You've given us those sort of programs that we can just get engaged with, and everybody loves their sport. They're very enthusiastic about that, and the application of sport in the community alongside sort of our enthusiasm. I just think that makes a really good package.
Yeah, well, you talk about the involvement with the Bristol Sport Foundation. I know that your title sponsors of Break the Cycle, the annual bike ride. I know quite a few of your colleagues have done it. Did you? I don't think you've managed to actually ride it. Did you? Last year you had to miss it?
Unfortunately, I had to miss it last year, but I'd done it did it the year before. It's a great event.
So the big question is, which distance did you do?
Oh, I did the full one. No, I did the full one. Yeah.
Very good effort. So now you're committed to that. You see, unfortunately, you can't ever step back. You now just have to keep doing that one. And this year, of course, the event has had to be postponed because of the current crisis. And I think there's even some talk of maybe making it a virtual one. So you could be in a virtual peloton this year.
Well, that would be fun. That would be fun. I think it's a great event. I mean, I'd be sorry not to be doing it around the roads out and across the bridge, and that was all great fun, but unfortunately not. But actually, all clubbing together to do something, I think it's a good idea.
Well, yeah, of course, that is a huge fundraiser, and one now that all of our foundations are involved in, and is a great participation piece, if you say, but an annual event. More regular are the kind of corporate sports festivals. And you talk about your staff being enthusiastic. A bird tells me that Hargreaves Lansdown are the most competitive, and I can say I played in the netball tournament and was witness to that.
Yes, I didn't make the team, unfortunately, but they are extremely competitive on that, and the basketball. Yes.
Yeah, I think you wiped the board with them.
Yes, I'm just thinking of if Liz gets to see this, she will be chuckling away, because she's the driving force behind it. But I think everybody enjoys getting together for the sport bit. We have I suppose this is one of the things. We have a mixed netball tournament that we do every year, and it's one of the most popular events that we run. And also, I mean, the reach that you get through the Bristol Sport Foundation into some of the underprivileged areas, and that sort of the scrums and sums, and that just been, I think, imaginative and creative. But it sort of all connects with the natural enthusiasm that people have, and it brings. I mean, sport does bring everybody together, So it's a great way of engaging with the community.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned sums and scrums there. I mean, of course, that's a for those that don't know, it's a primary school-based program delivered, but it obviously encapsulates the skills and ethos, if you like, of rugby alongside learning. And I guess so many young children as well. I mean, I know as a parent, and I'm sure you do, can remember what it was like trying to get young children to sit still, actually engaging them in some sport whilst learning. It can be hugely beneficial.
Yes, I mean I've always enjoyed my sport. I've got 3 teenagers. They're all into their hockey. I've got 2 girls. They're all into their hockey. My son's into both hockey and cricket. I think when you play for a sports club, you get to meet all sorts of people, and the engagement that you have is great, but also times like this, exercise is incredibly important. We had an HL challenge on Friday. We would challenge anybody to walk, ride, run, whatever you wanted to do, and everybody was posting it onto the Strava app, and we had various prizes, raising money for the NHS charities. Everybody feels good about that because everybody feels that they're doing their bit. And actually, you can come back to what we were talking about earlier on with the mental health and well-being. Getting out and having exercise is a key part of that too.
We talk about fundraising. Hargreaves Lansdown obviously been supporting the NHS, as everyone has been, and fundraising challenges. Of course, one of the things that you guys were involved with us was for the Bristol Sport Gala dinner, the annual fundraising dinner that raises money for our sporting charities. And I think you guys were partnered with the Flyers. I think you had a few of the Flyers guests on the Hargreaves Lansdown table.
Yes, I think so. Philip in the silent auction. So he won the tickets to go and watch the Flyers play. It was great fun sitting with them. But I also think that event is really quite inspirational. I think inspirational is exactly the right words to see, what that whole program can do to bring, such good things to a community, and it's all done through sport. I mean, that's an amazing event. I remember going to the first one and just being, totally in awe as to what's being created there.
Yeah, and it is about bringing that whole sporting community together from all different backgrounds. I mean, as you say, with a large workforce, you've got people that could be rugby fans, football fans, basketball fans, hockey fans. With the Flyers particularly, I think someone like Daniel Adosia, who I think you might have met or got to know on the evening, has just such an incredible story to tell of actually, it isn't to minimise it, but sport saved his life. Otherwise, if he hadn't found sport, he grew up on the streets of LA in foster care, and actually it was because of sport that it pulled him away from a life of probably involvement in drugs, gangs, and probably ending up either in prison or at worst death.
Yes, I mean his story is quite an amazing one. What a great example and a role model that people can look up to. But I think that as an example is, you probably can't think of a better example in terms of what sport can do in terms of improving people's lives.
Well, talking about the current crisis and the effect not just on our lives, but also, of course, the broader economy. I mean, Hargreaves Lansdown, it's your bread and butter is to predict where the economy is going.
I think it's going to take a long period of time for us to get back to, levels of activity that we've seen before, and I think it's going to be really, really challenging for companies. But I do think that companies with strong business models will demonstrate themselves to be extremely resilient, and their ability to adapt to the sort of the new situation will be critical in terms of how they invest in technology and how they think about new ways of interacting with the markets or their markets or their customers. And I think that adaptability, I'm fundamentally, I'm an optimist, and I do think that businesses will react to that. Companies will adapt to their supply chains. I think we'll all have to adapt to be able to work in these sort of configurations if we need to. I think there are a huge amount of positives that have come out in terms of how businesses have managed to work and how they've worked out what the right things to do are in this period. That won't be lost. That's all valuable activity. But I think it will take a period of time as we build this and we all build this back up. Looking at it one way, that one thing that won't change is that people have got to save and invest for the future. And I think, one of the things that you see coming out of, what's happened in this awful crisis is the importance of making sure that you do have financial plans in place that help you to save for that rainy day. But we can see what that rainy day might mean. But save and invest for the long term. That won't change, and we want to help people to be able to do that. Now, moving on from that, I think that the digital aspect of helping to do that is becoming more and more important. And we've now got just over 1.3 million clients, and we look after their life savings. That's a big deal to us, and we want to be able to do that as well as we possibly can. And I think what we look to, as far as the technology is concerned, is looking to make that that service and that experience that people have when they interact with us personalized as it can be. And when you're talking about doing that for 1.3 million people, actually what you're talking about is using digital technology in order to enable you to do that. We have some great talented people in Bristol with some strong skills, and we want to be able to deploy those skills to help our clients. And increasingly using digital technology and digital techniques is exactly how we're going to be able to deploy that. So I do think that digital is a significant opportunity, and it's one that we'll apply, as well as applying externally to our clients. We'll apply it internally for ourselves. There are processes that we have at the moment are far too manual. We would like to use more digital techniques to make them much more efficient, but also you're enabling us to do those from a remote perspective, whereas perhaps today we can't. So I think the role that technology has to play is extremely significant.
We were talking about our millennials and Gen Z a little bit earlier in our conversation, and I guess this pandemic has taught them as a generational whole the importance of really preparing for that rainy day. It reminds me of a quote in the Players' Tunnel, which is that fail to prepare is preparing to fail. And it's quite a harsh lesson, but it's a valid one.
Well, yes. And I think there are many lessons being learned from the experience that we're having, in the last few months. And, on top of that, I think people being forced into the lockdown, and they've got time to think about some of these pressures. They've got time to think about how they manage their money. And you've certainly seen that in actually some of the new account openings or the new clients that we've welcomed over the last few weeks. And there is a much younger group who are actually now spending the time to think about that. And that's interesting for us, because we're looking at that and thinking, well, what is it that we can do to help engage with that different group of clients who are different from some of the other clients that we've got, in terms of helping to build a relationship with them and give them confidence to go ahead and manage their financial futures. Because I guess in a way what the lesson that they're learning about, which you referred to, was how to prepare effectively. And that's what we're looking to do, which is to help them with their cash savings or investments, how to start building for the future. And you can start from relatively small beginnings and just build it up over time. But it's taking that experience, learning from it, and then, as you say, being properly prepared for the future.
Yeah. Just finally, obviously our founder is Hargreaves Lansdown, founder of Stephen Lansdown, and in terms of your involvement, it's been interesting to hear you talk that essence of community, which is what Steve brought to when he was wanting to create this sporting group, was also, you know, he's throughout this crisis and for all of the years that he's done interviews, he's talked about being a business in the community for the community, and they go hand in hand. It's interesting hearing that ethos runs through Hargreaves Lansdown as well.
Yes, it does. I mean, Peter and Steve created a great company. And one of the things within that great company was a very, very strong client culture. And it's certainly Hargreaves Lansdown is the most client-focused business that I have ever worked for. And I think one of the, you know, I recognize the privilege that I have now being CEO of that company. And it's my responsibility to help that company grow and develop into its next stages. And culture is a hugely important part of that. And you know, it's interesting the discussions that I've had with them and I've had with Steve. And Steve talked to me about the Bristol Sport Foundation right at the beginning in terms of what it was trying to, he was aiming for it to achieve. And I think what's so interesting is as Hargreaves Lansdown's grown and developed, and we've thought, you know, as we've said, with this fantastic group of colleagues that we've got who actually want to be part of playing in the community, that actually Bristol Sport has provided the connection to do that. And you know, it's something really to be proud of. I think Bristol is a city to be proud of. Bristol is a city with a community that is very varied in its background. And it's great for us to be able, as a significant Bristol employer, to engage with that and to do something that helps to improve people's lives with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly that is something that we hope we can all achieve, and we look forward to growing and developing over the coming years. Chris, thanks very much for talking to us, and I'll look forward to seeing you out on the bike.
Lisa, that's great. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed the programme. If you want to find out a bit more about our Bristol Sport Foundation and how to get involved, just head to our website and click on the link, Our Community. That's it from us for this week. Until next time, stay safe, stay well.